Bayonetta 3's secret DLC chapter may just give us hope after that heartbreaking ending.
Won't you Avalon Forest?
I'm an Umbra witch!
Yes, my dearest
I
Cereza.
still can't save anyone.
And I'll even break down the extra book pages for you all, as well as unblurring some crucial Easter eggs using AI. The secret chapter brings a very different touch to the traditional flashback, almost like an indie game type of feeling. You can also get this very cool outfit from activating all the Infernal flowers and going back to around the beginning. We have the cool theme or mini plot points of the classic young girl walks into a magical forest, or a sort of homage to Alice in Wonderland, which is a recurring theme in Bayonetta 3. Now, I'm going to have to give some sort of important context. From now on, in the next videos, I will be stating which interpretation I'm going to be talking about before I go into the theory, because that ending just melted everyone's minds after we all fangirled at that scene. The next video will be breaking down the whole of Bayonetta 3, but to put it simply, the context, interpretation 1 is my favorite, which is the Bayonetta that we played throughout Bayonetta 3 with, is the Bayonetta we grew up with all the way from Bayonetta 1, who we had adventures with Loki in Bayonetta 2, and so on, which makes the two Bayonettas that helped out the End Bayonetta and Brave Cereza, who is the one that we raised in the first game, who is now grown up and returned the favor to our Bayonetta with that cute little interaction, so that way the roles are now reversed. But you have interpretation 2, which is what I think is likely happening. It's not my personal preference at this moment, because you'll see why in a minute. This interpretation involves the Bayonetta that we played in Bayonetta 3 actually being the Brave Cereza that we raised in the first game, while Bayonetta from Bayonetta 2 and the Bayonetta from Bayonetta 1 are from separate timelines, so the games that we played aren't connected in terms of chronological order, but they all happened around the same time. You can see why I don't prefer this at this moment, but it's basically throwing character development out the fucking window since we played different characters all this time. While I do feel the epicness of the scene, I prefer personally the first interpretation, since the Bayonetta we grew up with is now getting help from the little one we raised in the first game. And of course, coming in full circle as a sort of cute, harmless payback of hitting her forehead. And also it means that we grew up with the same person throughout the years. Seriously, let me know in the comments which you prefer, interpretation 1 or being a snake. Nah, I'm joking, but regardless of which interpretation, who would have thought the same pose, the same scene, the same structure would be real?
Nothing you cannot overcome.
Don't worry, this will be expanded upon in my next video. Now that we got the context in hindsight, from what it seems from the secret chapter, we now have the 5 stages of Bayonetta's biological life, or this Cereza's biological life: the toddler, the child, the teenager, the adult, and then the present. 2 of them being shown in Bayonetta 3. Just the mere confirmation of her childhood and teenage years really yells out this being the Brave Cereza all along, and it isn't our Bayonetta who just changed her hair. So we were initially right during the 2021 trailer when it was released. Therefore, for this video, I'll be talking about interpretation 2, where Brave Cereza is the protagonist and the 2 other Bayonettas are from the previous games, all 3 being from completely separate timelines. The picture book has some adorable details which I think are just a teaser for what's to come in the whole book, aka DLCs in the future. But slowing it down, we have who I think is bolder due to the golden bracelets, the white coat, and rings, potentially teaching little Cereza, or Brave Cereza now, her first magical spells, most likely showing the basic elements of water, earth, wind, and fire. In Bayonetta 1, we did see that brave little Cereza had a close relationship with her parents, even if they were separated. Another reason why I think this is bolder is because Rosa is shown in the next few pages, showing the same pose as in hiding their faces to show off that nice contrast with the Lumen Sages and Umbran Witches, or light and dark. You have another page of Brave Cereza performing her magic, likely being the first time, but she says, and this was the closest translation I could find, meaning justice arise, which makes a little sense, but if you can, let us know in the comments if you think you found another meaning. This scene right here is likely the slight continuation of the chapter's cliffhanger, and I believe this book will explain the origins of the Twilight magic that Luca and Viola both have, which is something that they did not really explain in the whole of Bayonetta 3. And I'll be discussing this, of course, further in the next video. But honestly, if this interpretation 2, is the correct one, then Bayonetta and Luca are only confirmed lovers in this timeline as of now. So maybe there is some hope for our Bayonetta, but you have the 2 Bayonettas already long gone, so there's no possibility of going into their futures. Like, damn. Wasted opportunity to see if Bayojon was actually canon. There's this scene which is likely after the events of this cliffhanger, likely a small teleporter that we will encounter further into the secret book. Some sort of organic plant element type of magic. There's another scene where she is about to be dragged into Infernal, likely because she is still in training, and it looks like either one of the adults like the Umbran Elder or Balder will come and save her before she gets consumed. A nice glimpse of Brave Cereza back in Vigrid outside Rose's prison cell that she used to visit and sing Fly Me to the Moon to. When you unblur this one, it looks like Brave Cereza is versing a a Twilight Beast, similar to what Luca was using, which is quite a continuity error because if she did encounter Twilight Beast when she was younger, why didn't she know what it was when she encountered it in Bayonetta 3? Unless she already knew what type of monster it was, but not who was behind it, and that was the question that she was pondering. So that's the only way I could see how all this makes sense. Here's another screenshot of Brave Cereza, who, might I add, is expressed to be more confident and assertive, just like how she was taught in Bayonetta 1, which is another proof that this is Brave Cereza. See, the idea of them two dying now, while in the moment seemed very fitting, but now it just feels a little bit quite frustrating since there was no conversation that answered the questions. Which interpretation are we in? Like, there was no flashback to distinguish what is happening. Imagine if Bayonetta 3 Bayonetta looked up and when she saw the gun hit her forehead, it's a blurry silhouette of the little one, and then when she blinks her eyes, she's grown up, which is a huge confirmation that we are in interpretation 1, or that we have been playing our Bayonetta all this time. And what if there was a line by the Bayonetta 2 Bayonetta saying something along the lines of, "I just arrived from a very chaotic world, let's make this quick," which references the end chapter from Bayo 2 and confirms that we are in the first interpretation again. But from all the limited antics and lines they did, this all points to being interpretation 2, that we have been playing Brave Cereza in Bayonetta 3. Moving on, we see Brave Cereza stumbling across her giant Cheshire doll that's possibly magically enhanced, and it looks more like the one that Viola has, so it seems like she had upgraded the appearance after she returned to her original time period. But keep in mind that the one that Viola has is from Whittingham Bayonetta, the one that actually died in the beginning. We have to remember, technically and biologically, that is her real mother, and the one that she has adventures with in Bayonetta 3 is a variant or another version of her mother, of course. But again, just like how my teacher used to say, family isn't always blood. We have a glimpse of what seems to be an angel due to the portal-like texture below it and its claws, or maybe an angel masquerade form from a Lumen Sage. Like, I hope they detail more flashbacks to the Lumen Sages since Rosa was imprisoned the whole time, and it's likely Brave Cereza spent time with her father and the Lumen clan, as well as the Lumen Sages being completely forgotten in Bayonetta 3. You have an adorable scene where Brave Cereza is chilling with Cheshire in some sort of kitchen or basement in the Umbran headquarters or Umbran clan. Moving on, this is what I believe to be Brave Cereza's first encounter with her Madama, or at least her silhouette, or her shadow, or her spirit, doesn't matter. What I'm saying, it's at least her first appearance, or at least summoning her for the very first time. Madama Butterfly's origins, which is one of Crazy Gal's biggest hopes, shoutouts to you if you're watching this by the way. Hopefully in the DLC we see how they first interacted, and possibly having a line where Madama Butterfly references an annoying human royal. You have that contrasting picture with Rosa due to her Umbran watch, a picture of a Twilight Beast or Infernal Demon. I'm putting my chips on this being a lower level Twilight Beast, just like the one that she encountered in the cliffhanger. Brave Cereza crying due to her possibly feeling hopeless and weak, but I'm sure she'll get a flashback to that Bayonetta telling her that there is nothing that you cannot overcome. It then proceeds to introduce a child John in the Umbran hallway, and possibly she'll be the one to save Cereza from those Twilight monsters, which then leads to her crying about being so weak. Possibly even Child John gets kidnapped in this arc. Child John being surprised is likely because she senses Brave Cereza in danger in the Twilight Forest. I think after this secret chapter book, seeing her grow up from toddler, child, teenager, adult, and then present form will be the nail in the coffin that interpretation 2 is what's actually happening. Because I think it'll be a little bit weird and a little bit inconsistent if our Bayonetta, who just coincidentally changed her hair to be like that little girl that she met for this point in time. So I'm gonna say it now, I'm calling it. Krillian even called it. Every game that we've played was a separate timeline. Like, I really think they will show a picture book style version of the Witch Hunts chapter in Bayonetta 1 to finally confirm the whole chronological sequence of the whole Brave timeline once and for all. So at least we'll have that closure before we continue Bayonetta 4, with Viola, who I theorize will be much more grown up and potentially having a much more matured approach to the Bayonetta mantle and family name. Click here for the next Bayonetta 3 breakdown that is much more in depth about the lore. I'm rockin', and never get disheartened.